Hello, everybody, and welcome to Survivor Calgary All Stars recap for episode 9. You have nothing to be proud of. I think a few people had something to be proud of this episode. What do you think, Krish?
Yeah, definitely. I thought I was watching a funeral, but it ended up being an assassination. I don't really know what happened, but it was great.
So I guess we'll start at the beginning where Cole is already in the crosshairs. The people are already even before immunity happens and Evan wins it, people are going up to Evan, particularly Sydney, and saying, "Hey, not going to be you this time. We're targeting Cole here," which does, I think, earn her some goodwill with Evan once he does win immunity. He's more conducive to just play with them. It seems to be that everyone has this thought process in the game that, okay, once it hits 7, that's when things explode. Just one more vote.
Yeah, right. Because then it's your whole alliance plus one, so it only makes sense. Whittle it down.
Get an odd number, then there isn't a worry about a tie or something.
Exactly. Like one person lies or something, and then you have pie in your face. This way, you're doing it when you have to.
The problem is when everybody thinks that, oh, we'll do it next vote, that's the opportunity for people who think they might be at the bottom to actually make their move.
Yeah, and they did a great job today.
Yeah. Although I don't even know if that group of Cam Taylor and Shervin were actually at the bottom.
I was gonna say it's really just Cole that managed to get in there, that up his social capital. The other three seem to be pretty well established.
I think the big thing here for that group of people is they know, or they have a very strong indication that between Craig and Sydney, they have 2 idols and they need a blind side to get rid of them.
Yeah.
We get to basically everybody talking about sort of their positioning in the game. Mostly everybody's pretty confident. We also see the introduction of sort of the inter-episode thing where the Edge gets to talk about who they think deserves to win the game. What did you think of that, Krish?
I enjoyed it. It was great entertainment throughout. Everyone had their own spin on how they wanted to up their chosen person. My favorite was Tim's trying to say how Cole had a chance.
Tim's attempt for Cole. I personally like Sean's as well. Play nuclear war.
Cockroaches.
What survives the cockroach? Speaking of cockroach, we then get into our immunity challenge. Pretty simple one here. Just hold the cups up longest.
Yeah, simple.
Simple.
Not saying I'd be good at it, but it's simple.
And we see a pretty quick challenge here. Pretty tough position to hold, and people were generally pretty good about refereeing. What did you think about Evan pulling off the victory here?
Oh, I was like, heck yeah, let's go Evan. And then I was like, oh, he can't get any more votes. That is that. We need to keep the count going.
We need to up this. I don't know. We need to get an ongoing counter starting in some of the episodes where we're just like, Evan, what the count's at? 20 something.
But no, I'm very happy to see that he won. It's I'm sure that he was so relieved that for the first time in probably 2 days he can breathe a little bit easy for half an hour. But a great half an hour.
And a slight detail for people who are rewatching: if you watch Cole during the challenge, he falls down, the first person to fall down, and then he stays there the whole challenge. Just laying down, head to the sky.
Oh, I know at this point he really did think that he was going home, but because he was so certain that he was going home, once the plan came, I think that it was very it was perfect, because then he was able to just continue steering the same way.
Yeah. Immediately after the challenge, celebrating Evan's victory, we get a little bit of a clash between Cole and Craig. Cole sure that Craig has the immunity idol, and sure that Trivia Daddy is just taunting him. Oh, just need to convince someone with an idol to play it for you.
If only you had someone with an idol standing right here, it would help.
If only. And Cole goes, "Oh, if you're gonna lie to me, I just won't." And I, knowing Craig does not have an idol, I'm filming this. I'm just like, okay, sort of following along. We get the shot of Cole going to the bigger group and like saying, any of y'all want to make a move? No. Turning around and then waiting for 15 seconds while everyone is just staring at each other.
Like, could he have been a little more tactful? Probably. But this was super entertaining to watch. I'm not complaining.
Meanwhile, in the background, based off of like our impression of Shervin then Cole going off from this group to talk to Shervin, the plan was already in motion at this point, and they just couldn't tell him in front of those people.
Like, the fact that everyone was able to keep a straight face too, with Cole right there, and then Sherwin was able to sneak off, tell him, and then no one spoke of it again. I would assume until Tribal Council.
There was probably some like knowing glances at each other on the way to Tribal, but yeah,
a little wink here, a little nod there. But beyond that, to keep it quiet for half an hour, that's pretty impressive.
Jackson pulling out the "he's not my brother anymore," and also the Greg Popovich lines at Tribal Council.
Iconic.
And Cole did not find an idol. I can tell you this for certain. I walked with him for 30 minutes in the forest. There is still a long take 29-minute video of Cole walking through the forest looking for the idol. Did not find it. Hey, that's okay.
This just shows how far productions come, though. Cole didn't have to film himself for half an hour looking for the idol. He had you there to film him.
Listen, there was still a lot of self-filming. We're not quite there yet. Maybe season 5 when we have all of the all-star people coming back as a separate cameraman for one of the players. But yeah, we get Cole running through the forest, and then we get sort of everybody talking about, oh yeah, what does this mean for the future? We get Evan and Sid talking about how relatively kind of like, oh, this is going to be a shame. And then we get to Tribal Council, where I think through a mix of like Cole still not being sure and people not being in the know, we get in a very emotional Tribal Council.
If Cole was acting crying, holy, what a performance.
I
feel like it probably was like 50-50.
He was still like 60-40 on if this whole plan was actually going to make it out.
Yeah.
Because he's been in the forest for the last 30 minutes. He didn't know what happened in that time.
That's fair. He spoke to Sherwin and then was just running around the forest, just hoping to find an idol.
He talked to Evan and he didn't tell Evan about it.
Yeah.
He knows nothing.
Yeah, Evan came up to him and was like, hey, man, everyone's voting you. Sorry, but I'll try and find an idol with you. That's the only news he got.
Yeah. Cole's decision to just run in the forest. We know it worked out for him this episode. If we eliminate a results-based thinking or results-oriented thinking, do you think that was the right move? Or do you think he should have been talking to people more?
I think because he went to run in the forest after he spoke to Sherwin, I think that it was the right move because he had previously had some quite confrontational conversations with people that basically Craig told him that he needs to find an idol. And then he went to the other group and they said, we're not talking to you. So if he was not running around looking for an idol, someone would have, I'm sure, keyed in on that.
Yeah. He was pulling a Krish or a Timothy, or he knew that if this plan wasn't working, no plan was going to work, and he needed to find a plan Z.
Yeah, at some point, it's not worth talking to people anymore. You just gotta hope you can find an idol.
Yeah, especially with the only other target really having immunity around his neck.
Yeah,
and then we get to the actual votes. I think we had some emotional Tribal Council moments, and then we really got to the votes. There were some interesting tidbits in that voting period. The first being Shervin almost playing his shot in the dark. What did you think of that?
It's just that I don't want to make this decision. I don't want this on my hands.
Or alternative explanation, this is where he was eliminated in season 3, was episode 8 after starting a blind side on one of his alliance members.
Fair. Yeah, so that little like
it was a little bit of a familiar situation for him.
Makes sense.
But
I didn't realize that it was like the exact same
yeah,
point.
It was 8th place.
Oh man. That makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah. And then we get to Evan saying, I can't believe I'm upset about voting for somebody who I've already voted for 4 times. We have Taylor seemingly having a hard time voting for Craig here, although we thought it was for Cole. We even see him write down the letter C.
Editing magic, man.
Editing magic. Cole did edit this episode, by the way. And then we get the vote. Evan, Craig, and Sydney, notable reaction faces from Sydney, were not in on it, as we see the blind side play out and the rewind happens. And now we can talk about what actually happened during the rewind. From each player in that group of 4 plus Cole, do you think this was the right move to make?
Yeah, I mean, it was like the group was going to cannibalize on itself eventually. Like the next vote for sure. This is getting ahead of it. This is making sure that like you're on the right side. You now have the numbers moving forward. You just struck first. You just have to hope that especially Evan doesn't hold it too hard against them.
We see in episode 3 that a move like this happened, and from then on in, everybody who is at the top sort of has their position collapse underneath them. Do you think that's going to happen again here?
I think that, like, from me saying Sydney's definitely going to win, I'm now saying Sydney might be in a little bit of trouble.
Still got 2 idols.
Yeah, I think they're going to try and flash the idol the next one, like the idol that they know about the next episode, and then it'll be a little more even game, like even footing like that they think.
Yeah.
Sydney has another idol.
Craig had the me idol, and he got blindsided.
The me idol went home today.
Yeah, of course. Sydney's name flashes once again with the me idol above her. From Cole's perspective, how do you think his positioning in the game is now?
Heck of a lot better than it was.
Fair. Do you think he's in a good position?
I still don't think he's in a good position. I think now he has there's more of a chance that he'll be able to work with people moving forward, whether it's this group or like other people. Like now that the solid 6 is no longer present, he has a lot more like maneuverability. Plus, he just made this move with a group of 4 people, which is another like it was a pretty big move, pretty big blindside. I feel like that brings a lot of trust.
In the face of the jury, he definitely was part of it, even though he just got told about it and then ran off in the woods too.
And in all honesty, he said it himself. He's looking a little bit more and more like a goat with how things have gone. So maybe we'll see him in the final 3, honestly. Like, who knows?
Do you think producer of the show can ever actually truly be a goat, though?
In the like,
you see how people are reacting to having to vote him out.
When you put it like that, if he made it the final 3 and he leveraged that I'm the producer of this show and none of y'all got me out because y'all are all fools. maybe not that like bluntly, but it's a pretty good argument.
Yeah. Anyway, we do have two guests joining us today. We have Trivia Daddy, unfortunate exit from this episode, and in person joining our watch party today, we have Shervin here. Welcome both of you. How did you feel about that episode?
Shervin, do you want to start?
I really enjoyed the episode. I thought it was well edited.
I have a drink this time, just so everyone's aware.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, I enjoyed the episode, but it's bittersweet. You never like voting out people that you love.
Aw. This was a fun episode. I mean, I am honored that I needed a major blindside to be voted out. Like
you might have been eliminated on the episode of the season.
Yeah,
it could well be the episode of the season. We haven't seen all of them yet, but I think it's up there.
I'd say so. I think it was a major blindside, and I think I take it as a compliment that some of my closest allies had to blindside me this early ish.
Because you had the me idol. So my first question is, what do you think about this misconception in the game that it had to be one of you or Sydney that had the me idol, and Sydney's too trustworthy, so it has to be Craig?
Okay, I need to say this before we continue with any other conversation. I love Sydney a lot. She's one of my favorites, and this season I was so happy that I got to work alongside her. But this season, I feel I was a lot more trustworthy this time. I wasn't handing out final 2 deals with everybody. I really was trying. Last week, we saw an option for me to make a major switch. And I chose to stay loyal this season. And where did that get me?
You had the choice to stay loyal with this guy.
I know.
I guess a question right up is, do you have regrets about not going for that move there? Or do you think that was still the right move, but there could have been other things you did at 8?
I think it was still the right move. I really did trust Shervin, and I appreciate that he came to me. We had this separate conversation where it was kind of the two of us deciding. We decided that fate that last episode, and I felt it was the right move because I didn't think it would get me any further if we had switched it. I was like, well, we're not gonna, like, Sydney, Cam, and Taylor would no longer trust me, and I would probably have been the next person out regardless. I think either way you slice or dice it, I probably would have been the next person out.
Another question for you is, how aware of you of the sort of sub-alliance communications going on in this solid 6, this core 6 that you had at this point in the game? Because it does seem like, to some degree, it's getting away from you and Sydney and Jackson at this point, and that Cam, Taylor, and Shervin are sort of the middle ground between that solid 6 and the rest of the game.
Yeah, I definitely felt that there was, I could tell just even with the conversations I was having with people. I do feel in my mind at this point, I wanted us 6 to continue to go to the final 6. Whoever came back, we were going to didn't matter. We were going to get rid of it. And it was us 6, and we would just make it as fair as possible. Figured out if I was the first one because I previously won, sure, that's works for me. But I knew that there was little conversations happening. I knew that Shervin and I had a very strong relationship that we formed from our previous season. And I feel like Taylor and Sydney, because we've been through it the entire game, those two were definitely the two I trusted the most. Mm-hmm. And then with Jackson as well. And then Cam, him and I really got along when he was on production, and we became friends that way. And then doing the season together. But I was always like, well, Cam's also been voted. Like, I figured Cam and I would probably be the two who would make the most sense if we made it to the final 6. Cam's been voted out already. I'm a former winner. But I was willing to get to that point with everybody. I was going trusting this time. But I could tell that there was fractions just by the way Cam, Taylor, and I would talk. Shervin, Sydney, and I would talk. I could tell that there was this point, but I was really trying to make us all strong and be like, let's be that dominating alliance that goes far and actually makes it work.
Was there any concern about you losing some of that positioning when Robin went going out and suddenly you being the last winner of the game? Like how concerning was the rhetoric of we need to get a winner out? Oh, it can be Robin.
I mean, I loved Robin, and there was a part of me that thought it would be really fun, Tim, Robin, and I going secretly as long as possible, but I knew that they were a huge threat. So I knew, as much as I would have loved to keep Robin around, to keep that extra threat, I wanted to beat her. So
I mean, Edge returns notwithstanding, that could still happen. You are the best placing winner in the All-Star season.
Yes. Technically made it to halfway. That's too.
Pretty good. You got the best poker hand out of anyone, no matter what happens, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
I guess unless Sid wins, then you don't have the best poker hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she's got my idol.
Crazy that you gave it to her right before this happened.
I know. I should have. I was like, you know what, Sid? I don't need to hold on to this. Let me give you this.
Chris, first, do you have any questions?
Did you have like any idea that people were talking about votes other than like voting anyone other than Cole? That like tribal council that you got eliminated, or was it like a complete shock?
It was a complete shock. I was surprised. I knew that there was always an off chance that somebody else, and we kept discussing different things, and but I truly thought it was Cole's turn to go, and I thought that like he would be the next to go. It just made the most sense. Again, we're trying to be all together, and also in my mind, I'm like, and now rewatching it too, I'm like, he doesn't trust anybody. He keeps using all of his idols. So like, why are you going to keep him around over me when I've been very honest with you? But I can be shady, and I was in previous season. I maybe made a lot of alliances. But I thought the only other person would maybe be voted out instead of me or Cole would be Jackson in a weird roundabout way based off of idols and shots in the dark.
Okay.
We have Malone inserting a little comment here. I can't believe Craig regifted my idol kid. What's crazier is that this was already regifted from Timothy. Right after the Me Idol. So
yeah. Given to Justine, given to Sydney.
Yeah, Timothy gave it to Justine. Justine gave it to basically every Phoenix person who's been eliminated has been going out with this idol in their pocket.
Yeah.
A question for Shervin here. How concerned about idol plays were you when this was happening? Was one of the reasons you targeted Craig because you thought he had an idol and wanted to get it out in a blindside?
Yeah, the whole idol situation actually wasn't that big of a factor for me because I think when the Me Idol got distributed, I was on Yeti. So I had like the least amount of information about the Me Idol because I wasn't on the Phoenix Tribe when it got distributed. For me, the decision was on a number of factors. The first part of the decision was out of the Fire Tribe people, the people I felt closest to was Taylor and Cam. And the people that like I felt furthest from was probably Sid. And Craig I had a good relationship with, like I completely agree on that. But I thought Craig and Sid's relationship was closer than mine and Craig's relationship. So in that sense, I felt alienated from Craig. So doing the math in that regard and then figuring out that Cole and Jackson are also feeling like isolated players, we thought that it was a good time for a blindside. And the other part of it for me as well here was up to pretty much right at this point of the season, I was very paranoid. Like I was like very shocked that I was even still in the game.
You were about to play a shot in the dark. It was included in the point of the season.
Yeah, like this whole time, like playing with the Fire Tribe, I had been very, very paranoid. And I think this was the moment for me to find out whether or not Taylor and Cam were on my side. especially Taylor, because Taylor had a good relationship with everybody. So this vote put Taylor in a position in which he had to choose sides. And I got to see which side he was going to choose, whether he was going to side with me or whether he was going to side with the original Fire Tribe members. So, yeah, it was a strategic vote for me. Like, I had a good relationship with Craig. It's not that I wanted Craig specifically gone. It was more that, like, it was the best available options for me in terms of long-term play in the game.
Craig. Oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Did the bounties have anything to do with your guys' decision? Because I know that Taylor's bounty was Craig, whereas like Cole's Evan would have had Cole's bounty. So did that play any a factor into your decision?
Yeah, again, like Taylor feeling like one of my closest allies in terms of also getting him an advantage, which could benefit me in the future, also helped. It also reinsured in my mind that Taylor would have an incentive to vote for Craig and do this blind side. So it did play a factor in my head, at least.
Quick question for Craig. Shervin mentioned that he sort of had this view that he had a good relationship with you, but not as good as you and Sid. How accurate was that at this point in the game?
At this point in the game, I would say Sid and I had a really strong relationship, and I was hoping that it wasn't as clear to everybody because I figured that people would look at how close I was with Shervin and how close I was with Taylor in the last season. Like, Taylor helped me drink the Fireball idol, and Shervin and I had a very strong relationship. And whereas Sydney and I did not really have one at all. And so I was kind of going, okay, well, maybe people won't really think about her and I as a team. And that's why I was kind of very close with her, but I was hoping it was not as obvious to everybody.
But you would say that you were probably closer to Sid than Shervin at this point in the game.
Probably, yeah. Which was really tough because I mean, we saw, and this was a part too. Like I said, I feel like we had the initial of Sydney, Taylor, and I, who have just been through the whole thing together with Jackson as well. But I was solidified with Shervin based off of the potential flip the last episode, and we saw us talking in this episode. Like, I just adore this man. I love him so much, despite everything.
Now, I have an interesting hypothetical for you two.
Oh, okay.
Let's say Cole goes here, and in a wild twist of fate, Evan wins immunity again. So it has to be one of the 6 targeting each other no matter what. Who do you target out of the 6?
I think, again, if we really truly got to us 6, I would assume it's me or Cam on the chopping block because, again, Cam was voted out already in the game. And you don't really want to see that make it to the final 3 because it's like, well, you got voted out and yet somehow you're in the final 3. And then me as a former winner, they said if I made it to the final 3, they'd all probably lose against me, which I'd like to think is true.
Probably is.
Depending
on the gameplay, of course, but like in a vacuum, you pick the winner over anyone else.
Yeah.
I think, at least from my perspective, so if I had made it to like the 6 core group plus Evan and Evan wins the immunity, oh man, that would have put me in a really rough spot. Like, honestly, I in that scenario, like, I think in my head, I would have thought I was going home, which is why I didn't want that scenario to happen in the first place. I think me and Craig had different goals in that regard. And then even if the scenario did happen, if I had to think about which way I would try and pivot it, would have probably been Jackson, because it would have, at that point, with just those 6 plus Evan, it would have been perhaps easier to get Jackson out rather than Craig. And Craig, like on that vote, Craig's going to be on his toes, right? Whereas like on this vote, Craig was not on his toes, which is why it was easier to do it here than it was in the future. So
yeah,
so
I would have taken a shot of the dark if it was next. If I made it to next one, I would have taken a shot. Or my
yeah, I know, yeah.
Screw you, Sydney.
I do think it's a very interesting dynamic because in like basically every confessional we've seen and every like podcast we've had, every person who's been in this 6 kind of feels like they're at the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still going along without really shaking the boat too much. It's an interesting dynamic for an alliance to be.
It was very interesting. Again, going from my last season where I had a lot of alliances, but it wasn't a big alliance. And so I managed to just have all these connections and deals with people, to this season having a large group that I was like, okay, if I manage to do it with just like small individual people not really chatting with each other, but we have a big group this time, we should be able to friggin' rock this. But we got too paranoid and or too confident or whatever you maybe.
Chris may have some more, but this is my final question for you too. How did you feel about your Edgy's defense of your game?
Oh my God, I love Malone, and that was just. I am going to edit that, and that's just going to be what I wake up to every single day.
He's doing it again. Pointing like a Pepe Sylvia drawing in the background.
Yeah, and I enjoyed Kristen's, like I thought it was professional. Like right after I watched it, I was like, man, I want Kristen as my representative. Like I want to hire her, have her walk around and make pitches for me. It was great. Yeah.
And Malone unfortunately adds in, unfortunately, he was not.
Okay, I now hate you, Malone. Screw you. You are the villain of the season, even though I was the head of the snake.
He's been eliminated for 3 episodes, and he's still the villain.
He's the villain. I was controlling everything, and I was the head of the snake. But you're the villain, so
Chris, do you have anything else you want to ask?
Yeah, sure. How did you get so well integrated with the Phoenix tribe? Because like you went over with Sean, and for whatever reason, you were fine, and Sean was just right at the bottom.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I honestly, like watching it back, I think Craig had a big part of it. Like,
yeah,
like I don't like, to be honest, like from my perspective, like when I was in the game, like not watching the episodes back now, I was in total shock. Like the whole time I was like, how the fuck am I making it past these tribals? Like I have no idea why I'm here. And then like relationships started to form. Like I grew a really good relationship with Craig and Taylor, and like I was able to latch on to those 2 specific individuals, and really get myself like out of what I perceive to be a really big hole. So yeah, it was probably Craig and Taylor like really carried me out of that particular situation and got me integrated. So yeah.
Chris, anything else?
No, that's all for me.
On that, I have one question actually related to that. Craig.
Yeah.
At the double tribal where Justine went home,
yes.
It was supposed to be a vote of Justine, Jackson, and also Shervin. Was that intentional that you screwed up and voted for Sean instead?
That was, I love Shervin. And so I wasn't comfortable at that point to vote for him or anybody else. And so, I purposely voted for Sean.
Very directly, Craig is the reason that Shervin is still in the game at this point, because otherwise Shervin definitely goes home in that split vote situation. Malone has a quick question for Sherv. Who are you hoping for to come to the merge from New Yeti? Would that have changed your alliance? Like if Eric made it, I guess, specifically.
Yeah. So, I guess I have like a 2-part answer to that. Yes, I would have loved it if Eric made it back from the whole merge situation. And if he did make it back, certainly I would have made an effort to make a good connection there. But the other issue is like, not only did I want Eric to make it back. I wanted a strong Yeti presence to make it back. One of the, like my biggest problems in this game is like once the merge happened, I had relationships on both sides, but clearly one relationship was more dominant than the other, and like just numbers wise, the
Yeti was
Fire,
apart.
yeah, Yeti was like crumbling. Fire was like so strong. They kept me around for God knows what reason at that point. So it's tough. I'd say Eric would have had to come back and would have had to brought a strong Yeti presence with him, because without it, like I had to, at least until this episode, stuck with the Fire Tribe.
I think the biggest what if of the season is what if Evan didn't hit on the shot in the dark.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
It's a completely different season. You have 3 Yeti who are very well together going into the merge in that case. Or 4 of them, sorry. Anything else you two want to say before we close it off? We get to our player of the episode.
I want to say sorry to Trivia Daddy. He knows I love him. He knows it. I honestly loved playing with you both seasons. It was like such a pleasure. You're so good to be around. You know, you won once. So, I mean, you can't really blame me, you know?
Yeah, I'm wearing my winning buff.
Yeah. I mean, there you go. So, hopefully no hard feelings. Would love to see you again very soon. Thank you for having me on. Also, thank you, production. It's been a great season.
Craig?
Yeah, I want to say, like, thank you for letting me come play twice. The first time going into it, I was like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how I do. Family and friends were like, okay, first one voted out. And then somehow I won. So going into this second time, I was definitely nervous, knowing that I had one of the biggest targets on my back, being the most recent winner. But I had such a blast. And, I said there'll be vengeance if I make it back, which who knows, because I'm going to maybe try for some fun things to happen or, stir the pot as best I can. But with that said, as someone who just finished watching the newest season of The Traitors, with Alan Cummings, which I freaking love, such a great show. The Real Housewives did not understand it's a game, and they're still so bitter. Whereas all the people from Survivor and Big Brother and the challenges are like, what's the problem?
Imagine if we got Tom in some of those outfits.
Oh my goodness, yes.
That would be
amazing. Thomas Alan Cummings is now what I need in life. But yeah, there's no ill will. I adore every single person I played with both seasons. And I love you, Shervin. You know I love you. You're one of my favorite humans to ever exist. And I just thank you all for letting me. Where'd the hearts come from?
Oh no! Does this work?
Only for me, apparently.
Oh my God.
Okay, well, yeah, that sums it up, I think.
Well, thank you both for joining us. Krish, we have one more thing to do here. Let's get to it. I only need to remove one person. Krish, do you want me to give you a short list?
Sure.
Okay. I always need to include Evan in the short list because
I really wanted to give it to Evan. He won immunity, but unfortunately the vote didn't go the way that it should have for him to win.
Some other options, any of the 4 in the group that moved it, I think particularly Cam and Shervin, who sort of drove the other 2 to make that decision. Taylor and Jackson seemed to be a little bit more okay with going with the flow and letting Cole go out here. And then I don't know if he particularly did much this episode to actually get it, but the previous work he's done has obviously led him into a position where Cole could survive this vote. So he's also, I think, up there.
This one I think I'd have to give to Sherwin because of the 4, he's the one that spoke to Cole. So without him, none of this would have happened. So he's the one that I can pinpoint as doing one more thing than anyone else. Good job, Sherwin.
Anything else you want to say before we cap it off tonight?
I'm excited for next week. I have no idea what's going to happen, but
I'm here
for it.
The fallout. How will La Cucaracha navigate the nuclear fallout now? All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Survivor Calgary episode 9. We've got 10, 11, and the finale to go. So we're closing in on the end here. It's going to be a fun time, and hope you can continue joining us.